Cynthia broke down in fake tears at the doctor's office, but deep in her heart, she wasn't remorseful. She went straight into Uche's ward and sat beside her bed. She looked at her eye area wrapped in bandages and smiled to herself. The doctor says your sight may never return. Better get used to darkness, Uche. It suits you. She straightened her dress, turned and walked away slowly, her heels clicking like tiny knives against the hospital floor. Once upon a time, there lived a bright, cheerful young girl in the bustling city of Ibadan called Uche. She was adored by her neighbors, admired by her teachers, and loved deeply by her parents. Her father, Mr. Godwin, was a successful businessman who traveled frequently but always returned with gifts. Her mother, Mrs. Rita, a kind-hearted seamstress who worked from home and spent her days filling their house with warmth. Uche had perfect vision and loved sketching dresses, dreaming of one day becoming a world-renowned fashion designer. Life was simple, full of laughter until the day her world began to change. One morning, Uche found her mother pale and weak in bed. The doctor said it was a minor illness, but days turned into weeks and Rita's condition worsened. Despite her pain, Rita cared for Uche, calling her my little star. Uche prayed endlessly for her recovery, but fate had other plans. One quiet morning, Uche awoke to the sound of relatives crying. Her father hugged her tightly, tears rolling down his face. Her mother was gone. Before leaving the room, Mr. Godwin placed Rita's special golden locket around Uche's neck. At just 13, she felt a void no words could fill. Mr. Godwin put his travels on hold, doing his best to raise Uche alone. But business pressures mounted, and when Cynthia, Rita's best friend, offered to help, it seemed like fate had sent an answer. Cynthia was loving, caring, attentive, and always by Uche's side. Eventually, Godwin married Cynthia, believing she would care for Uche like her own daughter. At first, life seemed perfect. Cynthia was sweet, always holding Uche's hand, guiding her, cooking her favorite meals. But beneath her kindness lay a darkness Uche hadn't seen yet. When Godwin was around, Cynthia played the role of the perfect wife and mother. But when he traveled, her true colors emerged. She became cold, harsh, and controlling, constantly sending Uche on errands and punishing her for the smallest mistakes. Uche cried in silence, too afraid to tell her father. Years passed. One scorching afternoon, Cynthia handed Uche some money and ordered her to go to the market. Knowing the consequences of delay, Uche obeyed quickly. After shopping, the bus stop was packed, so she reluctantly took a motorbike home. The journey was smooth until tragedy struck. The huge truck suddenly swerved into their lane. The rider jerked violently to avoid it. Uche was thrown off the motorbike and fell headfirst on the edge of the road. The motorcycle mirror had completely shattered and there were fragments of the mirror all over Uche's face. Everything went black. Uche was rushed to the hospital where the doctors worked quickly. The accident scene was a few streets away from Uche's house, so the people that saw what happened immediately alerted Cynthia. Her father was also informed. She was taken into the operating room and the doctors were attending to her. Hours later, the doctor called Cynthia into his office. Her head had received quite a hit, and some fragment of the broken mirror has entered into her eyes. We can only hope it heals well, but right now she has lost her eyesight. Though she can still see some shapes and colors, everything is basically blurry, and at times it might go totally dark, the doctor explained. Cynthia broke down in fake tears at the doctor's office, but deep in her heart, she wasn't remorseful. She went straight into Uche's ward and sat beside her bed. She looked at her eye area, wrapped in bandages, and smiled to herself. The doctor says your sight may never return. Better get used to darkness, Uche. It suits you. She straightened her dress, turned and walked away slowly, her heels clicking like tiny knives against the hospital floor. Uche's heart sank. The thought of not being able to see made her eyes fill with tears. But just when she thought she finally had proof to tell her father all that Cynthia had been doing, something strange happened that night at the hospital. When all the nurses had gone and the hospital room was quiet, Cynthia stepped into her room again. She leaned closer to Uche. Her voice was low and sharp. "You must not tell your father I sent you to the market where the accident happened," she said firmly and slowly. "If you do, I will make sure you regret it for the rest of your life." Uche's lips trembled, but she nodded silently. Her chest felt heavy, not only from the pain in her legs, but also from the secret she was now forced to keep. It was the only chance she had to reveal Cynthia's true nature, but she knew disobeying her stepmother would only bring trouble. With her father away most of the time, there would be no one to shield her from Cynthia's anger. The next morning, Mr. Godwin returned to the city and went straight to the hospital to see his daughter. When he stepped into the ward and saw Uche lying in bed with her face wrapped in bandages, his eyes widened in shock and tears filled them. "Uche," he exclaimed, his voice breaking as he rushed to her side. "What happened? Why would you be out there when we have cars at home? Who sent you?" he asked. Uche's heart began to race. A part of her really wanted to tell her father the truth, to tell her father of how Cynthia had been maltreating her. But then she thought that if the father forgave Cynthia, then she would make her life a living hell. And she also thought that if her father sent Cynthia away, then her father would be very lonely. And so Cynthia decided to keep quiet. Cynthia's warning echoed in her head, and she felt trapped between fear and telling the truth. Suddenly, the door to the ward opened and Cynthia stepped in, making it even more difficult for her to speak the truth, even if she wanted to. So, she forced a small smile and said softly, "I just wanted to buy some snacks from the market, Daddy. I didn't want to disturb anyone, so I went on my own." Her father frowned in confusion. "You could have asked Cynthia to follow you or send the gate man. You should never go alone," he said. Before he could ask more questions, Cynthia stepped forward, wearing a look of concern, so convincing that even her voice was filled with empathy. "I had no idea she left the house. She must have sneaked out while I was busy in the kitchen, but thank God she didn't lose her life. Please let her rest," Cynthia said. Then she went to kiss Uche on the forehead. "Get better soon, my love," she added before leaving the ward with Uche's father. Once they were outside the ward in the hospital corridors, Cynthia began planting seeds of doubt in Mr. Godwin's heart. She told him that Uche was lying when she said she had left the house to buy snacks. "I'm afraid she's been spending too much time with boys in the neighborhood. In fact, I heard she has a boyfriend somewhere, and she was on her way to meet him when the accident happened. Cynthia lied effortlessly. She always does this when you're not at home. I try to guide her, but she doesn't always listen. You know how teenagers are, she said. At first, Mr. Godwin brushed it off. Uche was his little girl. He found it hard to believe, but Cynthia never stopped. She kept telling lies about Uche, and soon those lies began to sink into his heart. Uche, still recovering in the hospital, didn't know that while she was healing from the wounds in her leg, Cynthia was quietly opening another wound in her father's heart. She was building a wall between them, breaking his trust towards her. Weeks later, while Uche struggled with her new reality, she could no longer draw. All she had was her mind. Uche would hold her drawing book close to her chest. Sometimes she would open it and sniff the pages. She would try to remember her designs and all the beautiful dresses she could design if she had her sight. One day, Cynthia took her to a boutique to shop for clothes they could wear for Uche's aunt's wedding. It was important to Cynthia that everyone saw her as an angel, a great mother to her stepdaughter, even when she was a monster. While Cynthia was trying on her clothes, Uche held onto her drawing book. Not being able to see the clothes brought tears to her eyes, and as she held the drawing book, she felt some comfort. The book slipped from her hand and fell to the floor, and Uche bent down and tried to pick it up. A young man who came shopping saw Uche trying to pick some papers that had scattered everywhere, went to her rescue. The young man started picking the papers one after the other, but as he looked at the paper, he was completely mesmerized. The beautiful designs on the paper captivated him. They were so high fashion and still looked like what could be rocked by an everyday woman. And that was how Raphael, a young billionaire and fashion mogul, crossed Uche's path for the first time. He admired her sketches and he was impressed by her talent, and he asked her who the sketches belonged to. Uche blushed and said they were her designs. He told her he would love to pay for her designs. Uche blushed even more and told him that she had only a few designs and could not make more because of her sight. Raphael told her that they could find a way around it. When Cynthia came out, Raphael told him that he would like to take Uche to see a doctor for evaluation. Cynthia, who didn't care if Uche regained her sight or not, agreed. All she wanted was for Uche to be out of the house so she could have some time to herself. 2 weeks later, Uche found herself seated in a crowded hall at the Hope Site Medical Outreach, surrounded by people battling blindness. Doctors moved briskly, calling names, running evaluations, and explaining procedures. When it was Uche's turn, a gentle female doctor examined her eyes carefully. Her expression was unreadable. Finally, she spoke. "Uche, we can operate on you. But," she said, "there is no guarantee. We might restore your vision, or we might not." Uche froze. 1,000 fears collided in her heart. What if she woke up to darkness forever? At least now she could see some shapes. But Raphael squeezed her hand firmly. "Take the chance, Uche. You have survived worse." With trembling lips, she nodded. Little did she know that this stranger was about to change her life forever. The day of the surgery arrived. As they wheeled her into the cold, sterile room, Uche whispered a silent prayer. "Lord, if there's still a purpose for me, give me one more chance to see the world again." Weeks later, when the bandages came off, the nurse asked softly, "Uche, can you see me?" At first, there was only light, a blinding, overwhelming brightness. Then, shapes began to form. Walls, curtains, faces. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, I can see. The room erupted in applause. The surgery had worked. Against all odds, her sight had been restored. Weeks passed and Uche's world transformed. For the first time in months, she woke up to the golden rays of sunrise and watched the birds dart across the skies. With her vision restored, she picked up her sketch pad again, something she hadn't touched since her blindness began. Her fingers trembled as she drew the first lines. As days passed, her passion came flooding back. Her designs became bolder, richer, and more daring than ever before. She poured every ounce of her pain, her loss, and her rebirth into the fabrics. Raphael was stunned the first time he saw her new collection. "Uche, these are incredible," he said, awe glimmering in his eyes. Little did Uche know that those same designs would change her life. One afternoon, Raphael arranged for a small private showcase for a few investors. Among them was Mrs. Kalu, a renowned fashion buyer known for spotting rare talent. The moment she laid eyes on Uche's collection, she froze. "Who designed this?" Uche stepped forward nervously. "I did." Mrs. Kalu smiled. "Pack your bags, my dear. Paris is calling." Uche's heart skipped a beat. This was the moment everything began to shift. The moment the world would finally see the woman behind the pain, the strength behind the scars, and the artist behind the vision. Meanwhile, Cynthia, who was delighted in Uche's suffering, began to lose control. Her lies to Mr. Godwin slowly unraveled, and Uche's success made her insecurities worse. As Uche's designs began appearing on runways, admiration for her talent grew. So did Raphael's feelings for Uche. Cynthia's schemes to destroy Uche failed one by one, while Uche's resilience and hard work earned her the respect she deserved. But Cynthia's cup was getting full. Since Uche was usually not at home, Cynthia, who thought she had the house all to herself, decided to invite a good friend over. Uche's father, who had decided to surprise his beautiful wife and daughter, walked in on Cynthia with another man in his sitting room. They had been so carried away and didn't lock the door, especially since she wasn't expecting anyone. Cynthia was sent out of the house that day. When Uche came back and saw her father, heartbroken, she finally told him what happened to her the day she had the accident and how Cynthia had been treating her. Her father asked her why she never mentioned anything all those years. Uche told her father that she knew Cynthia made him happy, so telling him how despicable and pretentious she was would have made him send her away, and he would have to go back to being alone. Uche's father was moved at how kind-hearted Uche was. Thinking about him even when she was in pain, it reminded him so much of her mother. Later, Mr. Kazu found out from his gateman and from neighbors that Cynthia had been inviting lovers over for years, and it was because she needed to be with her lover. That was why she sent Uche out that day that she had an accident. Months later, at the World Fashion Show in Paris, Uche's collection debuted. Her designs brought the audience to their feet. Reporters called her the lady who redefined courage. Backstage, after the show, Raphael went backstage and found Uche. He was so full of pride. He told her, "The world finally sees what I saw the day I met you," he said softly. Uche smiled through tears, holding her mother's locket. Her journey from pain to power had come full circle. Uche's story isn't just about fashion, it's about faith, resilience, and destiny. She lost everything, her sight, her dreams, her family's love, but she rose from the ashes stronger than ever. Finally, Raphael found the courage to tell Uche that he was in love with her. And of course, Uche was in love with him too. And that was the beginning of a beautiful relationship. When life blinds you, don't stop believing. Sometimes miracles come when you least expect them. If you enjoyed this story, please give me a thumbs up and tell me what you think about Uche's story in the comments. Remember to subscribe if you haven't. Thank you so much for watching. Please click on this video on the screen. I know you're going to enjoy it. See you there.